In the diversification of life, we will be discussing about the equilibrium or expansion. So we have discussed about the how the species diversification patterns are. So one of the two things that we have been debating on, these are the equilibrium or expansion. Equilibrium means that the species diversity is increasing up till some point, and then it comes with the equilibrium with the environmental factors which are damping the species diversity, and it reaches many equilibriums in certain periods of time. And the second theory is for the expansion. The expansion is the species diversity goes on expanding. It never or it has not yet been reached at the equilibrium with its environment. It is still expanding. So if the logistic model that we discussed in the last topic as a loss model is correct, life has diversified in a controlled manner, reaching one or more equilibria, each of which is probably density limited. That means everything, if we talk about the environment in which we live in, each environment has some carrying capacity, but that carrying capacity pertains to one species, one population, and one niche only. What about the carrying capacity of whole planet? Is it limited, or the species diversity, does it reach to the whole carrying capacity of the planet? That is the question, that either it goes to the equilibrium or it is still expanding, which is called expansion. The second is the exponential model. If the exponential model is correct, life has diversified in a less controlled manner. If we see the history, the life has been expanding, and is it more controlled? That is difficult to say, because we don't have that much fossil record, or we cannot understand on the basis of the evidence that we have that it is either equilibrium or expansion, but we can debate on it. So it has been rising continually and never reaching an equilibrium. Food and space limitations slow the rate of increase. So food and space limitation, these are the things that occasionally slow down the rate of increase of diversity, but it does not decrease the diversity. It is still expanding. So that is the second point of view, which is called expansion. So there are 8 observations for distinguishing equilibrium and expansion models of diversification of life. We'll be discussing those. First 4 in the favor of equilibrium, and the last 4 are in the favor of expansion. So first observation is that an evolutionary explosion of marine animals during the early Cambrian, and diversification rates slowed after the initial exponential rise. So that means it is sort of this is an evidence that it is logistic or equilibrium explanation. So first it was very much increase, and then it slowed down. If it was an expansion model, it should have been expanding till today, but it does not. So that means it is saying that this is not a expansion but a logistic or equilibrium explanation. And then there were rapid, the second observation is that there were rapid rebounds after mass extinction, in which local and global diversity recovered to pre-extinction levels during the relative short span of time. So we have been discussing that if major extinction event comes, many an organism will went extinct, and afterward there will be rapid expansion of the species diversity in certain surviving group of animals or plants, and that is called the radiations. We have seen that in the extinction event. We have seen that how the dinosaurs went extinct, and mammals are now ruling the earth. So it's suggesting the refilling of vacated ecospaces, and then again it is equilibrium or a model that explains it. And then there are the late phases of diversification cycles are associated with declining the rate of origination and increasing the rate of extinction. So again, the species diversity is damped at the late phases of the species diversification as a logistic curve approaches to the equilibrium level. So at the end, the S makes a plateau. The sigmoid curve comes in parallel with the x-axis, or there is less increased variety and more extinction. And then there are marine record which are affirming this observation. And then there are the Paleozoic plateau in marine animal diversity is strong evidence of equilibrium. In explanation to the third point, again the fourth observation is similar one, that the marine diversity is in equilibrium with the environment. But note that the plateau appears clearly only in family level data compilation. So we are understanding this at the family level. If we go on much more than that at a kingdom level or at a particular habitat level, this won't be true. So, and then there are the next phase of the observation. Observation 5, a single equilibrium level is easier to understand in terms of a global equilibrium model. Otherwise, each equilibrium has to be justified as representing a complete overhaul of the evolutionary and ecological world. So, it argues that when we talk about the equilibrium, we are talking about a single equilibrium level. We are not talking about the whole planet. So, this is one of the drawbacks which is in favor of exponential increase of the species diversity. And then there is no evidence for the global carrying capacity of the species. As we have discussed earlier, that the carrying capacity is for one particular organism in one particular habitat. What about the whole planet? We don't have any evidence for that. So a fundamental assumption behind the equilibrium model has yet to be demonstrated independently. So again, no evidence for the exponential method or the pattern, but the refuting of the equilibrium model. And the observation 7 is the radiation of life on land and of certain major marine clades appear to followed an exponential pattern. It is still decreasing. There is no sign of slowing down in the rate of increase nor the occurrence of any equilibrium level. So there are certain clades or the species which are increasing in number, and still they are. So this is an evidence in favor of the exponential pattern. And then last but not the least is the modern fauna that radiated dramatically over the last 100 million years and showed no sign of reaching an equilibrium level. So the modern fauna, the modern number of animals that we see today, these have not been decreasing for last 100 million years. And that is an evidence of equilibrium level. So what is the conclusion? That there are arguments in favor of both. So there is no point in seeking an overarching mathematical model to explain the diversification of life. It can either be one first or the second. We don't know yet. And there is no further ecological value of making this model and studying them. But of course, we must debate these things, just like that if the life form was expanding or it was still in equilibrium with the environment.